Hello, I'm Pam Hoffman, Everyday Spacer.
And I'm Jeff Miller, 2049 Outfitters.
At Everyday Spacer, we show regular folks how to personally and directly participate in space exploration, science, and astronomy, or we show you how to navigate space. We're here Friday nights at 9 p.m. Pacific time, 5 a.m. Saturday in London, and 3 p.m. Saturday in Queensland, Australia. We're broadcasting live from Thousand Oaks, California. Thanks so much for joining us.
Today's guest is Alison Klesman, Senior Associate Editor of Astronomy Magazine. She's currently based near Milwaukee, Wisconsin, as opposed to the other Milwaukee. She'll share with us what she does.
Alison, take it away.
All right. So hi. Basically, I kind of wanted to talk tonight about science communication because that's essentially what my job is. I am, like you said, Senior Associate Editor of Astronomy Magazine. So first, I just kind of wanted to talk about what that means. What does an editor do at a magazine, like astronomy at least? And then kind of go into science communication and how important I think that is and why it's so much fun that is my job, essentially. But as an editor, I guess it's a little bit misleading. The job name is editor, but I actually do get to do a lot of writing, which is nice. That's what I really love to do, honestly. But so I get to basically develop, write, and edit stories basically for our website and for our magazine. So we have the website, we have the magazine. There's a lot of crossover these days. As you know, you kind of have to have everything in both places. But it's a lot of fun. You get to do different types of work to put things on the web than you do.
How long has Astronomy Magazine been around? I remember that from
like 47 years now. I want to say we had our 45th anniversary, I think, 2 years ago while I was here. So
cool. Okay.
Yeah, so it's been around.
How'd you get involved with this?
So honestly, my story is a little weird. So it was pure luck, actually. So I started out in science. My background is purely science. I was a writer just kind of by interest, essentially. I did a lot of fiction writing, but not a lot of journalism. I've never taken a journalism class in my life, anything like that. But so while I was in graduate school, one of my friends who graduated ahead of me, I guess he was contacted by Discover Magazine, which is owned by the same company. So Discover and Astronomy are both owned by Kalmbach Media, which owns those two science magazines, and then a whole bunch of hobby magazines like Trains and Model Railroader. They own those. Those are kind of probably their biggest selling titles, probably way more important than us. But so he was approached by Discover and gave them my name. And at the time, I was finishing up grad school. I didn't really have any writing experience professionally. So I talked to the people at Discover, but they ended up, passing me by. But then when this job at Astronomy kind of popped up a couple years later, they actually reached out to me and said, "Hey, we've got this job now at Astronomy." So it was very lucky. I know this doesn't necessarily, always happen. It was kind of just luck that they had my name. I had writing experience at that point, and it was perfect, honestly.
That's great.
Yeah. So like I said, my background is in science. I did a little bit of everything. So most scientists, as they go along from undergraduate to graduate, they kind of drill down and find a topic that they love and they want to work on, and they just kind of get into that niche. I started out as an undergraduate doing planetary science. So I worked on things like mapping ice on Jupiter's moon Ganymede and working on Pluto's atmosphere. So Pluto went in front of two stars, like right in the same summer while I was an undergraduate. And so we were working on that. So that's a great way to see its atmosphere when it goes in front of a star.
How do you map ice? That sounds wild.
We had Hubble data. So that was like a really short little project that I did, but we had Hubble data of the reflectance. So you see how much light is basically reflecting back to you. And areas that have ice tend to reflect more than areas that have rock. So we ended up making this very pixelated, terrible map, but, it's this map of like where the ice and the oxygen and everything were on Ganymede, which was, again, really cool to make like a map and see it. Again, as an undergraduate, that was a lot of fun.
Very, very fascinating. All right, cool. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, yeah, and then And then when I went to grad school, no one was doing planetary science. So I actually ended up doing astronomy, which, so I ended up skipping right over everything else and going right to supermassive black holes in the centers of galaxies. So from planets to like the other the other end of the spectrum, essentially. But that's what I studied. And then after grad school, I kind of decided I didn't really want to necessarily keep going as a researcher. I wanted to go more into outreach. Again, I got lucky in grad school. My advisor, my PhD advisor, was in charge of outreach for our departments. And so I kind of got roped into helping her a lot, but I ended up really enjoying it. You know, we would do public nights at our campus observatory. We had a blow-up planetarium that we would take to schools. It was during the summer when the Galileo scope came out, if anybody remembers that. These plastic, really kind of cheap, affordable, I guess not cheap, but affordable, you know, $25 kits that you could build your own telescope, basically on par, honestly, better than what Galileo used, because we have better glass making techniques today. And so we would take those to classrooms and build them. And I really enjoyed it. So when I graduated, I ended up working for it's a bed and breakfast out in Tucson, Arizona called Cat Mountain Lodge. Highly recommended if anybody lives out there or gets out there. But they have a small observatory with 2 telescopes attached kind of to the bed and breakfast. So I kind of ran that observatory with a couple other people, and we would accept tours. So when guests wanted to come and look at the night sky, and you actually don't need to be staying at the lodge to book a tour there. So, you know, even if you're in town or you live there, you can book a tour at the lodge. A star tour is what they call it. And basically you just get, you kind of get an astronomer at your fingertips for the night, and a really, really nice telescope at your fingertips for the night. And so
yeah,
oh,
David,
and I know I always talk too fast. I'm so sorry. Yes.
well, they're in Australia.
Australia.
They're in Australia, and I have a feeling their bandwidth is a little different
Right.
than
No,
ours.
I tend to talk fast anyway. I'm from Chicago, which are some of the fastest talkers in the country. So that's my excuse, but it's really not a good one. But so yeah, I would run these star tours, and again, it was a lot of fun. I learned what was up in the sky every night because I kind of had to know. And at that time, I also started working as a web writer. So I also was again writing blogs and writing information for websites. It wasn't necessarily science writing, but it was still writing. And that's kind of the one thing that I want to almost emphasize, is that a good writer or a good communicator can write or communicate about anything. It doesn't have to be, thank you. It doesn't have to be science necessarily, or it doesn't have to be, you don't have to have that background. Again, I was lucky when I went to astronomy, and that was what they wanted. They wanted somebody with a science background. But you don't have to have that background. What you have to do is do your research, which is basically what any good writer does, or what any good communicator does, is that you do your research. And find credible sources, you know, like NASA or something like that. So if you were interested in becoming, you know, a science writer, or even just writing about astronomy, kind of communicating to other people, you know, what you like about it. You know, a lot of people have blogs these days, I guess, or websites, or there's a lot of forums and ways to communicate with people. And so you can basically, as long as you're doing your research, that's really all that's important. And the next thing that's really important about it is just to do it. So writing is and communication, again, it's not necessarily written communication, spoken communication, you know, giving talks or doing outreach, going to clubs, talking to your friends about astronomy. You just have to do it. It's a skill like anything else, honestly, and you have to just practice it. And
Yeah,
so, you know, I got a lot of experience doing that. Mm-hmm.
Just real quick, so for David, who is finding it squeaky, I presume on Facebook, go ahead and go over to the YouTube channel. If you need that link, we can get that, but I'm going to have to play with it a little bit. So yeah, David, if you can't quite hear it right, go over to the YouTube channel. Go to YouTube and look for Everyday Spacer, and if you need the link, I can give that to you. All right, go ahead, Alison. Sorry.
Sorry, like I said, our work computers here are not the best, so hopefully it's picking up all right.
Yeah, you sound fine to us.
Okay, well that's good.
We're on the same side of the Pacific.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, there is that. So it has a lot less far to go. Yeah, but so communication is a skill, just like anything else. You have to work on it. And a lot of times I almost find myself, you know, when I have a story to write that I'm really excited about, almost, I kind of want to wait for the moment to be perfect to work on it. Like I want there to be no distractions, have my coffee sitting there ready to go and feeling inspired. But like those conditions don't always happen. It's not always the perfect conditions. You just have to do it. And that's how you get much better at it. And, I've improved even since I've, again, started working at Astronomy Magazine. Like I said, I've never taken a journalism class. I kind of came in and had to learn how to be a journalist on the fly. And that's something you can do. Again, you can learn that. And that's kind of the third point I guess I want to make about communication is always look for ways to improve, because there are always ways to improve. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you're a bad communicator. It just means that you're a good communicator by wanting to learn how to do it better. Again, for me, it was how do I take this, science concept and make it into a story? How do I make people interested in it? And that's kind of what you want to do when you want to get people interested in your hobby. We're all here because we're already interested in astronomy, but if you're talking to someone who's not, you need to make it compelling for them, or you need to make what you think is compelling for them. You need to basically take that and make that something that they're excited about too.
Thanks, David.
Like I said, I talk too fast even on a normal basis. So you get me in front of a computer when I'm all excited. And
he's kind of a ham too. So we helped David here when he came to the United States for the total solar eclipse.
Nice.
Yeah.
That was my first total solar eclipse. That was really exciting.
Oh, very cool.
I think there was no one in the astronomy office that day. We all were somewhere else watching it.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So you had some links to share. Are you ready to share?
Yeah, right. So you can go ahead if you want to throw up the first one. So one of the first things I got to do at the magazine, one of the first stories that I wrote was about Zooniverse. So that kind of is a really good segue. Zooniverse is kind of this really, and I know that you've talked about it on your show before, but anyone who's tuning in the first time, Zooniverse is this really powerful citizen science platform that basically lets researchers and, citizen scientists, which are all of us, people who aren't, doing science as their job, it lets them kind of communicate and basically talk to each other and work on these projects together. I'm in the United States, so I'm in Milwaukee, which is where Astronomy Magazine is based. I think we have subscribers all over the world. I want to say that we do.
Probably. That makes sense.
Of course, you can go on our website. So,
David, have you heard of Astronomy Magazine? I'm pretty sure that's pretty much worldwide by now, after 47 years.
We get questions, at least, from all over the world. So.
Oh, cool. Yeah, the website, that's an easy one.
Yeah.
You don't have to wait for it to be delivered. It's right online.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Here we go. What did you think?
Oh, there we go.
Oh.
So that's a really interesting question. It depends on who you ask. So our subscriber demographic is very different from our website reader demographic.
Oh,
so, probably to no one's surprise, most of our subscribers are older. And that makes sense to me. So right now, I think, print is doing okay because we still have that older audience. As time goes on, I think digital is becoming ever more important. And when I first got to astronomy 4 years ago now, we weren't posting online. We didn't have as many resources to post online regularly. We were putting the magazine online, but it was a lot of the things were, say, for magazine subscribers only, and they weren't the ones who wanted to read it online. They already had it in their hands. So we kind of changed that a little bit. We're looking to change. I don't think we've been around that long.
1901, David.
But so we've been trying to change it and put more online and integrate the two a little bit more. So I think the future of magazines is really to integrate themselves a little bit more with digital, and that doesn't need to mean that the magazine goes away. It just means it kind of needs to adapt and change, knowing that a lot of people are going to prefer to read it online. But some people still prefer to have a paper book, and actually you can't see, but over on that side of the room are 4 giant bookshelves full of books because I like having books.
I do too. I really like that whole experience, the smell of it,
right.
And
The one thing I will say is that, as you can tell, I like comics, and I tend to read my comics online. I tend to get the digital version of those, but that's just because they take up a lot of space.
Interesting. Okay.
But
Yeah,
mostly
Captain America is my favorite.
That's my favorite. So. Yeah. But so going back to Galaxy Zoo, Galaxy Zoo is what started Zooniverse. So Galaxy Zoo was this project that started before Zooniverse. So when I was in grad school, I heard about this thing called Galaxy Zoo. And it was this website where anybody could go online and help classify galaxies because astronomers classify galaxies by shape. It's kind of an antiquated system, but it works. And the crazy thing, especially about this, which has always been crazy to me, maybe it shouldn't be crazy, maybe it's a good thing, is that the human brain is way better at recognizing patterns than any computer program you could write, which is why we still classify galaxies by eye, why you still have somebody looking at them by eye. And the story kind of behind Galaxy Zoo is they had this poor grad student looking at all of these galaxies. They had this giant data set. They all needed to get, classified. And it was taking him forever, and he was going crazy, and literally was all he was doing every day for a month, and he couldn't take it. So they outsourced. They put it online, and let people learn how to classify galaxies and do it for them. And it was a great success because people like contributing, especially amateur astronomers, people interested in astronomy. We all like contributing.
And there's lots of checks because each one of them had, 15 people or something.
Yeah.
Maybe better.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly how many, but that's the idea, is that it's okay if you make a mistake, because what they do is they have tons and tons of people look at the same object and classify it, and then they basically just take, kind of the average of that, and whichever classification gets the most, that's probably correct. So that's how they end up doing it. It's not all down to you, which made me feel much better.
Yeah, and there must be a lot of people on each image because it's been around so long, it's still only like 97, 98% finished.
Right, yeah. There's always more galaxies is the answer,
that's true.
especially with that. Well, and the thing about, astronomical data, and I think data in general, is that it's getting bigger, essentially. Our data sets are getting bigger. We've got instruments that have higher resolution. We've got things that are mapping the whole sky every several nights, like the Vera Rubin Observatory is going to do. Yeah, I think it's going to map the whole southern sky in like every 3 nights or something.
Wow.
It's crazy. And it puts out terabytes of data a day. It's going to be crazy. And there's just no way to handle all this data without help, essentially. So it's really that the researchers need that help. But on kind of the flip side, when you go participate in Zooniverse basically makes those researchers have to become better science communicators, because it's putting them in direct contact with all of us who are helping them out with that project. There are kind of communication boards, there are forums, and a lot of times there are the actual researchers interacting with people, answering questions, finding things that are really cool and digging deeper into those. And so I actually got to go talk to the development team down at the Adler Planetarium.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is really cool. It's kind of my hometown planetarium anyway, since I'm from Chicago, and it's only 2 hours away now, so I tend to go there a lot. But they let me, go down and talk to the team for this article about Zooniverse. And so, what were the first? That's a good question that I do not know the answer to. I want to say we were, but I might just be biased.
Maybe.
I feel like I can look this up.
Real quick, Alison. I think also the thing with communicating is you're going to get a huge spectrum of folks who are doing the crowd, the helping part. So you folks have to get better at communicating with that kind of a broad, spectrum of people.
Everyone, with lots of different experiences. I mean, there are 10-year-olds doing it. There are probably 90-year-olds doing it. You get everybody doing it, which is really cool. But yeah, you have to learn how to talk to everybody about that, how to get everybody interested in it. In that kind of thing. And the thing that I also think is cool about Zooniverse in general is, yes, they run astronomy projects. It started with an astronomy project, but it's not limited to just astronomy. So if you want to try something else, they have history, they have archaeology, they have climatology, they have medical. I remember there was one where you were looking at cells around cancer tumors to like, again, figure out where like the cancer tumor was. And, you know, it's all this real world applications. Yes, they are. Yeah.
Oh, still? They're still mostly
again, magazine readers. Most of our magazine readers.
Oh, the hard
subscribers, I want to say. I think our subscriber demographic is still heavily male. Online, that seems to be somewhat different, which is good. On the staff, actually, we're pretty much equal at this point. I mean, our staff is about 6 people, but we have, you know, equal representation on staff at least. Yeah, magazine-wise, I think our demographic is mostly male, but I think it's pretty different online. Again, it's a much younger audience. But I mean, yeah, it's always kind of been a male-dominated field, which it's getting better, but it's not, you know, fixed yet necessarily. So it depends.
It's not egalitarian.
Right. It's interesting because when I was in grad school, our department was pretty evenly split for grad students, but there were only 2 female professors out of a whole bunch. So there's a big disconnect in general between grad school and, you know, professional astronomers.
Immersion just goes. That's fun. Well, but the good ones are getting. I mean, the optics now are getting so good. I won a few years ago this little. It's about yay long. It's a spotting scope, and I looked through that, and I was like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah.
It was so amazing looking. So I think part of, you know, that could change because a lot of the equipment was very heavy. You needed a big vehicle for it. And that was for, you know, a lot of times for burly guys. And, and I think that's just going to change.
Equipment gets smaller. Gets easier to use. We had a step stool at the observatory that I worked at, and I was probably the person using it the most. So yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's getting more accessible, I think, too. And one thing that was really cool is really bright objects. You can take pictures of them through a telescope with your cell phone. So I was always letting, you know, I was always letting kids and like people come through and, you know, take pictures with their cell phone and take it home, because that's what gets you really excited.
Yeah, I've seen some amazing shots. They just point, shoot, moon. Oh my God, are you kidding? You just got that by...
Yeah, I've got some really good pictures.
No adapter, no tripods, nothing. Just steady as like, oh, wow. Yeah. That's a female type person. Yeah. Thanks.
No, I've never had a problem with it. I've never really experienced that. I know that people have. It is definitely still an issue. I fortunately have never really run into anyone, you know, saying anything, or I've never felt uncomfortable necessarily. When I go to conferences, like I said, it seems to be at least the people that tend to set up the meetings are equally female and male. You know, again, astronomers tend to still be a little bit more heavily male, but there are plenty of female astronomers now. And yeah, when I'm talking to people or interviewing people, even older people, I've never really had a problem with it. So again, maybe I've gotten lucky. I would like to think that things are just changing.
Or maybe we're a little more civilized.
Yeah, I think times have changed. Like you probably would have had more trouble 20 years ago than you do.
Well, I still hear about women who are involved with gaming and getting a lot of grief. Yes. So if astronomers aren't doing it, maybe, like I said, maybe a little bit more civilized.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. My sister is actually really into gaming, and so she runs into this a lot. Yeah, and I mean, even, you know, to go off on a tangent, comics is a little bit the same way sometimes. Again, it depends on the people. I mean, I go to a lot of comic conventions. I generally have, you know, no problem with it, you know, but you know about, there are people like that. But, you know, I think culture is generally becoming more accepting. I think it is getting better. But it takes time, you know, yeah. You hope so, but it takes time, so.
Yeah, right. So yeah, we had a couple more links that you are wanting, or is that for later? Is that for the?
That's kind of for later, I guess, if we're going to talk about what's in the sky.
Okay, all right. So you let me know when you've wrapped up this part of it, and we'll go into the next part of it. So
yeah, I mean, kind of the last thing I really want to talk about with Zooniverse and with being able to do citizen science is that, again, I kind of want to emphasize at least what I learned was that really, you know, yes, you are helping these researchers, but it's not you're not I mean, yes, of course, you're generally doing it out of, you know, the goodness of your heart, or you're really excited about what you're doing. But you're getting this hands-on experience, and also they give credit where credit is due. So again, in the astronomy projects, because again, since I was writing for Astronomy Magazine, I generally looked at the astronomy projects. But in cases where citizen scientists, people, you know, on the platform had helped make discoveries. Their names ended up on the papers, on the posters that were presented.
Wow.
Sometimes they got to talk to the press about it. There were a lot of instances where, you know, people doing the projects, they got credit because they were the ones who made the discoveries. There's
That's
one,
really exciting.
yeah. So
even Soho, when Soho, the people that look at Soho and find comets, they name the comets for the people who found them.
And actually, I just thought of it now. The Juno probe orbiting Jupiter, right? It wasn't going to have a camera on it at all. But so the camera on Juno is basically a citizen science project. It is people, you know, go on and they get to decide what we want to look at. And I think they do a lot of the image processing too. It's all citizen scientists. I'm fairly sure that it was not, it wasn't meant to have a camera at all. No problem. And there's also HiRISE, the HiRISE camera, which is orbiting Mars. And that's largely citizen driven as well.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah. So people get to pick what they want to look at, which is really cool.
And I forgot to show your slides. Do you want to still talk about them?
It's okay. I mean, if you want to throw up, like, say, the Zooniverse one, you know, I can kind of click through that real quick and show people what I'm talking about.
Sure.
So this first one is just my story. So again, you can go read it online. I have to do a plug. Not necessary if you don't want to, but our art department laid out this really nice layout.
Yes, it is necessary. They have to go read it.
I should say it's necessary, right?
Is that the first link?
Yeah, that's that first link. So that goes directly to the story that I wrote.
Okay.
And again, it was one of the first stories I wrote. It was, you know, it's near and dear to my heart, but it was just it was a topic that I was really interested in the first place. So it was really cool to get to write about that.
Very cool.
And then if we go to zooniverse.org is the Zooniverse website. So you can go there and explore and have fun. Up in the upper left here, there's a button called Projects. And so again, I just kind of want to point out that there are all these other types of, you know, projects that you can do. So I think astronomy is last, so you have to scroll all the way to the end to get to space.
It starts with an A, though.
I know. Well, space, I guess. They put it under space.
Oh, space. Okay.
Right. I know.
That's funny.
So, these are all the projects that they have running right now. And again, each of these are different topics. You know, if you want to do Mars, if you want to do you know, gravitational waves, there are a whole bunch of different options here that you can do. And they still have Galaxy Zoo. So again, you can still go do the OG if you want.
And there's like 26 of them, right?
I think so. And again, they're always changing. So
it's always changing.
Oh, okay.
So at the time that I counted, it was 26.
Oh, okay.
But,
yeah, and again, it'll change. Some of these will end, new ones will start. So if you see something you like, definitely go in and do it, because it may not be there forever. I think Galaxy Zoo is the only one that seems to be there forever. But again, they have all these other ones as well. I think I was looking at earlier that was really interesting to me. This one was cool. They have all these old weather records from battleships in World War II, and they need people to transcribe them to know the conditions of the oceans at that time, because we didn't have all the reports. And that just, you know, happened to catch my eye earlier this morning, because I'm a big World War II buff. But
okay.
Yeah, so there's just all of these projects that you can do. So again, even if none of the astronomy ones were to interest you, you know, look at the other ones, because there is so much else that you could do. And, you know, you're helping science no matter what you're doing, and you're participating in science no matter what.
And that's at zooniverse.org.
Yeah.
Oh, and I have a question about Zooniverse, because it's kind of a pet theory of mine. Are they using this to train AI?
They are a little bit. So I did talk to them about that. That is kind of somewhat in process. I think it's a slow process. I think, again, they found that humans are still better at the moment. So we still have that edge. But yeah, there are certain projects that I think they are working to train AI on it. It's not necessarily the end goal of this type of thing, but there are certain, you know, resources in which, yeah, it is useful to train AI.
Mm-hmm.
Because AI is useful for astronomy, again, when you're looking at huge data sets and trying to find the one thing that's different. Sometimes AI is very useful. I don't think it is strictly a US thing. I know that anyone in the world can take part in it, so it doesn't matter. I mean, it might just be a US-based platform. It's actually, a collaboration between the University of Oxford and Adler. So it's not even necessarily just a US-based thing in the first place. I think most of the development is done in the US, but that doesn't necessarily mean that only US, residents can take part in it. I think anyone in the world can jump on there and get started.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I haven't seen anything in Universe when I signed up for it that that required you to state what country you were from.
Right. They might be interested in that just for data demographic purposes, but it doesn't matter for actually taking part in it. No.
Got it. Okay. Did you have more slides to show?
Not now. So
okay.
I don't have a whole ton of visuals. It was mostly just me rambling.
That's great. We love that.
Universe is also very pandemic friendly. Is my last point. You can do it from home.
Right. And we love that you come and talk to us about, and really to demonstrate the things that people can do. And you've done a lot of different things. This has been really fabulous. All right, so why don't we do a last call for questions? Dave, you've been wonderful. Thanks so much for asking so many questions, even if you are cheeky.
Cheeky questions are still good questions.
Absolutely. Yeah, Dave is a good guy. We had a lot of fun with him, and he comes to our show on a regular basis. So don't feel like you've been singled out. He does that to all of us.
I guess the other thing too I could say is that if you have questions, if you have astronomy questions that you want answered by an expert, ask Astro at astronomy.com, and you can go to our website and it's up there. We have this Ask Astro column where of course we can't answer them all. We get a lot of questions, but it does, and again, not a US-based thing. Anybody in the world can ask questions, and if you've got a question, we'll find an expert and send it out to them. Possibly slowly. The crazy thing about working on a magazine is that we are working on like June, July, and August right now. So, I mean,
Alison, is that Ask Astro or Ask Astra?
Ask Astro here.
Because we can type that in.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yes, you have that power. I can put it in our little.
Yeah, we can actually share it to the different platforms as well, and that's what Jeff is doing.
At Ask Astro at what?
Astronomy.com. We are
astronomy.com. And then Jeff will share it on the screen as well.
So again, that's just for, generic astronomy questions that you have. If you've got a burning question that you can't find the answer to, Google has failed you, we can find the answer for you, hopefully.
Very
Not
cool.
always. Again, some of the questions we can't answer. People really like to ask us very, very hypothetical questions. We like to have slightly more solid, questions that we can, but...
I usually show the radio station one. All right, so I think that was going to be my last question. Where can people find out more if they would like to know?
And astronomy.com is our website, so there's plenty of information there. We've got news there. We've got what's up in the sky. I would love to have a Mars helicopter named after me. That would be fantastic. I'm so excited about that thing. I really hope it works.
Yeah, that's like amazing. I just found this wonderful, like they're saying 4K images from Mars that they put together like last July.
Yeah.
And it's like you're standing there looking at the surface of Mars. It's really astonishing. And they talked about that helicopter. I'm like, wow, that thing goes fast.
Yeah. Well, and they have video of Perseverance landing this time, which amazes me. It's so cool. That was one, half hour of Thursday that none of us were getting any work done last week.
Exactly. Yep.
Wow. All right. Oh, thank you. You put that in. Okay. So let's see. We've got another piece here. Unless anybody has more questions, I think we'll move on to the next segment, and Jeff will kick us off with that. So hang on, Allison.
Yeah.
What do you got?
That sounds all right.
Of the helicopter on
Mars.
Yeah. The atmosphere is so thin. You really have to pump it up there.
I wonder how the sand is going to affect it. They said they only do like five hops or something. I don't know.
I think it's going to set it. I think they're going to try and do it away from the rover so that if the sand does blow, it's not going to, damage the rover or blow on. I mean, I guess it's pretty easy to sand on it, but.
Yeah, I was thinking would that get into the rotors, and you had a thought?
Well, the dust is so fine that it probably does get into mechanics.
Oh. I imagine it gets everywhere.
But the atmosphere is so thin that kicked up dust has no thrust to it.
Right.
I mean, that whole Mars movie with
The Martian.
the Martian, with everyone getting taken out
Well,
by
the winds aren't that high. That's the problem.
Well, here's the thing. Yes, they are fast, but they're so thin that it feels like a feather being pushed against you. You know, you're being poked with a feather.
The
There
rest
you
of the
go.
science in that movie was so good. It was just the one thing.
Yeah, it was kind of like everything after that was great. They just started it off with something that was so ridiculous.
Right.
Drama, baby.
I need it.
Well, and then Cody's lab did a lot of stuff on the science of that, tested to see whether it would actually work. He actually created Martian soil and to see if potatoes could grow in it. And yes, it's actually very toxic. But yeah.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so.
All right, so Jeff will kick off the next segment, and then Allison will have you chime in too.
Yeah. Okay, what you can see in the night sky this week, including February 26th through March 5th. The moon is 16 days old today, and the full moon is
Tomorrow.
October 27th. Oh yeah, that is tomorrow. I thought it was the 25th today. Oh well.
I never know what day it is anymore.
Well, I've got a 9-to-5 job and I still don't know what day it is. But Mars is still high in the sky.
In the evening.
Yeah.
I should have put that there. Sorry.
Yeah. But,
and maybe Allison can help us with this next part.
Yeah.
Go ahead and say it.
Oh, Vesta's 6.3 magnitude, easily visible with binoculars in the tail of Leo.
Now, I heard this a few weeks ago. Is that still something that people can find?
It's still there. So it's actually in the top 10 brightest things in the hindquarters of Leo at the moment.
No kidding.
And actually, I have this written down because I did put this in so I write our Sky This Week column for the website every week.
Share again?
If you would like to, yeah, I've got it up on my screen since I need it for reference here. This is this week's Sky This Week. So actually, you can, and we've got it up every week. It goes up every Friday. And Vesta is at opposition this week.
Oh, no kidding. Oh, so it's like the best time.
Yeah, so this week is the best. So the 4th. Vesta's actually in opposition. So that evening, you'll find it in Leo. And it's actually, I guess that evening about a degree northeast of Chirton. I do not know if I'm saying that right. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that star out loud. But there's this right triangle of stars in the back end of Leo. And Chirton is kind of the one, I don't remember my geometry. It's where the right angle would be. I'm sure that there's a word for that I just don't remember. But that's it. It's...
Well, 90 degrees.
The vertex would be where two lines come together.
Right, it's at a vertex. But it's so Chirton is the one kind of right on the edge there, so Vesta will be right there, is where it should be. And then 6.3 or so. I think I just rounded down to 6. But yeah, binoculars will totally show you that.
So last week was really quiet, and you do this every week. So what's happening this coming week in the sky?
Right. Some weeks are more quiet than others.
Yes.
Let's see. So I have the full moon. So the full moon, and a lot of people like to know the special names for them. So the Farmer's Almanac lists the kind of historical names. So February's full moon is a snow moon. No astronomer knows that, for the record. You don't use those, but
okay. Well, some of them have more than one name.
But
some of them have like the Indian names from the
Yeah, they're usually like Native American or colonial. A lot of them are American, since it's the American Farmer's Almanac that kind of came up with it. So there's the full moon. Usually when the full moon's in the sky, it's not worth trying to look at anything else, honestly. So you might as well just look at the moon because it's right there and you can see.
Moon's good.
Yeah, and then Mercury, Jupiter, and Saturn are up in the morning, right before the sun rises, usually. Maybe like half an hour before, depending on your latitude. They kind of make a triangle that's been changing. So Mercury is much closer to us and it's moving pretty fast. And so it's actually been changing from day to day, whereas Jupiter and Saturn, being so far away, don't really look like they're moving very quickly. So that triangle has been kind of flattening over the past couple of days, and it'll keep doing that as Mercury zooms by. So I think I picked that. And then Mars, you mentioned Mars. Mars will be close to the Pleiades. On Monday, it'll be 3 degrees south of the Pleiades.
Oh, wow.
So pretty close.
Yeah.
It's going to like zoom right underneath it, essentially. And
it's getting a little dimmer too, I noticed.
Yeah, so it's so what happens is, since our orbit is kind of on the inside track and it's on the outside track, it's pulling away now after its opposition, so it's getting farther away from us. And that's why we wanted to launch everything so that it would land, so that it would get there quickly. If we launched something now, it would take much longer to get there, and it wouldn't be kind of fuel efficient.
Right.
The European mission ended up having to wait, so they're going to wait until the next, best pass, essentially.
Oh, I didn't realize they were going. We talked about it last week, where there were like the Chinese and of course Perseverance landed, and there was the United
Arab Emirates, yeah.
Yeah, so it's the European, I think ESA and Roscosmos have a mission as well. They've got an orbiter and a rover.
oh, cool.
Yeah, I think it's Rosalind Franklin, I think is the name of the rover.
Oh, wow.
But so yeah, they ended up, because of the pandemic, not quite finishing in time to launch it in last July. So they just decided to wait until the next time that we get close. So that they
Perseverance, I guess, was at threat too, but they thought the expense of storing it would be
right.
would not be very good for they wanted to launch, they didn't want to wait.
Get it out there, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So anything else happening in the sky we should know about?
What else do I have? There are some quiet weeks. I think the last couple things, Orion Nebula is up right now. It's a really great thing to see. I recommend waiting until the moon's maybe a couple more days past full. I think I picked that for the 5th because I think the moon isn't going to be as bright, and it's not going to be over in that location.
And I have a link for that page, don't I? Is that the link?
That's the general. So that's our general Sky This Week column. So if you go there, you will get all the columns. I think the very last one is the one specifically for, this week. But if you go if you go to the first one, it'll be there too.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah. So, sometimes on slow weeks, I'll just pick some of my favorite objects to look at that are up in the sky. Again, it was really useful to run that observatory for a while, because I kind of learned over the course of a given year, what is up in the sky, what can you actually see,
right.
What looks great, what doesn't look so great, what are people really interested in looking at. So you kind of learn. So yeah, on slow weeks, I just kind of pick things like that I feel like people will enjoy.
Yeah, and there's nothing quite like actually going out and seeing these things for yourself. And yeah, if you folks are out there listening, I highly recommend it. I know it's hard in some places. I was born and raised in Northern Ohio. It's a little bit like Chicago for skies.
Yeah, not that great.
Now that I'm here in Southern California, it's like, oh my God, it's so amazing. But just keep trying. I think sometimes like in Ohio, the astronomy as a hobby was much more, I think a lot more people involved. And I was like, well, yeah, because you can't do it.
But even someplace like this, you can look at the moon, you can look at the planets. There are things that you can see, even if you can't maybe see a galaxy looking super cool, you can still see the moon and the planets. And there are a lot of things that you can look at.
Yeah, and we talk about the space station too. I post up that on like Facebook for my private one. Whoops, sorry, that was me. Button. And it's bright. Sometimes it's super bright, and it's like a negative 3.9 at the brightest. Right. And even that can cut through some cloud. Mm-hmm. But that's a wonderful thing to look at.
The interesting thing that I have not yet gotten, I have been to the Southern Hemisphere once, and the Southern Cross the sky was just amazing. I got really lucky again through Astronomy Magazine. Part of kind of writing a story, in exchange for writing a story, I got to go on a trip to the Southern Hemisphere.
Where did you go, Alison?
We went to a whole bunch of observatories. So we went to Chile, basically, through something called ASEP. It's ACEAP. Actually, if you are an educator of any kind, or a planetarium, or you work in a planetarium, you can actually apply for this program. It's an NSF-funded program that takes a group of people every year, probably not this year, but takes a group of educators to these observatories. So we went to like CTIO, we went to ALMA.
I think you need to come back again and talk about that sometime.
ALMA was very exciting. I don't do incredibly well at extremely high altitudes, I've learned. I did okay, but
I think it's a hydration thing.
Yeah.
So if you ever go back, take a lot of water.
More hydration. Yeah. Well, we went up to ALMA. We didn't go to the base site. We went to ALMA, which is basically Everest base camp altitude, whatever that is.
Wow.
So it was a lot.
That'll kick your butt.
Did you get to drive there at least instead of hiking up it?
They drove us up. Yeah.
was gonna say, oh my god.
Yeah, no, there is no way you want to hike up there. We all had oxygen bottles with us and everything. It was interesting. It was really cool. Even, I mean, most astronomers that go to Alma first off, when you go to a telescope, when you observe with a telescope, and especially a radio telescope, you're usually not there. Someone takes the data for you these days and just sends it to you.
I see.
Even if you were to go there, you usually stay on kind of their base level, which is where, all the control rooms essentially are. But they actually let us go up to the site to see the dishes, which was amazing.
Wow.
Not a lot of people get to do that, so that was cool.
Wow, sounds like a great trip.
Yeah, so that was fun. And then I had to write a story about it, which really wasn't very hard after that point.
Shucky darn.
Yeah, twist your arm.
All right, so if that's good, and we're looking at any more questions, or do we have any more questions?
Nope, I popped up David's.
Awesome, great. Thanks so much, everybody. And you want to just run through and say hi to everybody, and thanks for showing up. We had David, and we had Christina. Christina came, and we had
Christina and Jared.
And there was somebody from Sydney. She came in from YouTube. Is that someone you know, Allison?
Possibly, yeah.
Oh, okay, very cool.
I think so. I'm betting if it's YouTube. Yep.
All right, so I'm going to kind of wrap it up here, unless anybody has anything else to say. Jeff, you got anything?
Nope, I'm good.
All right, so and here's kind of the usual thing. We say if you or someone you know has done something interesting involving space exploration, science, astronomy, stuff like that, we'd love to share our live, just like we did with Allison this evening. And want to talk to you a little bit about next week. We want to see you next week, which is Friday, March the 5th. We have another citizen science project in our series. This will be, go ahead, Jeff.
Oh, yeah, teaching Mars rovers how to classify Martian terrain.
And Jeff's going to do that one.
Yeah, another Zooniverse.
Yeah. So if we don't have a guest by then, Jeff will regale us with some Mars rover stuff. And it's very timely. Thanks for thinking about that, Jeff. I never think about that stuff. And thank you very much, everybody, for coming. Do we have any more? Any more final comments or quips?
Nope. Not this time.
All right. I want to thank you so much, Allison, for being here with us. Thanks, Jeff, for helping with comments.
Yeah.
And we'll see you folks next week. Have a great evening.
Yeah. See ya.
Bye.